So you love podcasts, and you want to listen to more amazing content, but you have no idea what to listen to. And your friends keep telling you about great episodes, yet you can never remember what they told you. Well, here's the answer. Good Pods. It's the social app dedicated to podcasts where your friends, podcast listeners, and favorite podcast hosts all come together to share on their feeds what they recommend and what they listen to. You can connect to others, bookmark episodes, start a conversation about the episode, connect to the hosts, and most importantly, listen to great podcasts right in the Good Pods app. Download Good Pods wherever you get your apps and start sharing with a community that loves to listen. Good Pods. It's where to connect and listen.
In 23 years of broadcasting, I thought I'd seen it all, folks. But it looks like Lou Diamond has actually blindfolded himself before doing this podcast.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have an award-winning fine jewelry designer and former interior designer, social worker, radio host, and lifestyle blogger. Feeling lost in her 40s. She doesn't look like she's in her 40s. She started reaching out to her network of friends to help find her path. Her podcast, It's Not a Crisis, was born when she realized that her search for answers could help other women navigate other journeys as well. Thrive Loud listeners, it's not a crisis. It's Doryn Wallach. Doryn, how are you today?
I'm great, Lou. Thank you for having me.
So I love talking to podcasters, Doryn. I'm going to let you know this. Just because I love hearing their journey on how this all came to be. How did you feel lost? Can you share with the listeners a little bit about what that feeling of being lost was about for you, what that meant?
Yeah, sure. So I think there are, especially for women, there are times in our lives where we are supported, postpartum, new marriage, and then you see a lot of support for women after 50, menopause, your kids are leaving the nest. But I felt in talking to a lot of my girlfriends, and as I'm 43. So I think with every year that I've been getting into my 40s, I've been looking at everything and saying, wait, what is going on? Why is nobody telling me anything? And my friends were, just as clueless. Whatever it's coming down to, their bodies or their kids turning into teenagers or leaving the house or their parents getting older, so many different things. So I also feel like in your 40s, you start to begin the process of finding yourself a little bit. And so I think in thinking about things that used to make me really happy, I've not on your list because there's been so many things. I used to work in social work, so I loved helping and talking to people, and I just in general love helping women. So that's sort of how I was lost, and then I found.
Okay, so in finding it, let's talk about the whole idea and what the platform of the program is about. I'm going to just to give the listeners an idea, because I know the minute we have to do that now, because then they're going to hear what it's about. They're just going to stop the thing and they're going to jump to all your episodes. Right. I know that's usually how it happens. So share with the listeners a little bit about what the basis of what the flow is about on the program. So
the number one thing I wanted to make certain with the podcast is that it's positive. I didn't want this to be, a podcast of gloom of like, oh yeah, this is midlife. And that was why I called it, It's Not a Crisis. It's not a midlife crisis. I don't like the word midlife crisis. I feel that it should be a midlife transition. And we should look at the future, the next chapter of our lives in a positive way and say, okay, how can we do this work now at this age so that in the next 10 years, we're in a great place where we're feeling really good about the rest of our lives and we're able to live it in a positive way. So each subject pretty much hits women in their late 30s and 40s. And we talk about anything from, health and nutrition to perimenopause. I'm right now doing a Wise Women Over 50 series. My mother was the first one I interviewed, but I'm one of the most.
By the way, That might make you the wise person to put her at the top of the
I
list.
know,
Yeah.
but it was funny because it was very popular. People loved it. Um, and I'm fortunate enough. I just interviewed Annie Potts.
Oh,
I
amazing.
know her, and I interviewed Vanessa Williams yesterday. So, and both of those women were so dynamic and amazing. And the point of having them on was to say, to talk to us, talk to their younger selves.
Yeah.
Uh, I am very involved with my audience. I am very involved on Instagram. I really want them to be a part of it. So I get a ton of emails from women saying, "Hey, I've never talked about this with anybody, but this is what's going on in my life. Is this something you could do a podcast on?" And it inspires me. And I go out and I look at a bunch of experts and figure out who I want, and I interview them, and I bring them onto the show. A lot of times I get things from women that are just, I'm like, yep, you're like the 12th person this week that's asked me about that. And it just goes to show that a lot of women feel very alone, and they feel like they're the only ones that are experiencing all of these changes. And they've been very grateful to have a place to go. So
I like it.
that's it.
Doryn, I'm going to rewind a little here. And obviously you are a jewelry designer. So you create things.
Yes.
And even I'll say that your previous interior designing work is creating. And so creation is something that you're about. What has created a business like your business as a jewelry designer versus creating this program? Talk about maybe the things that you like or dislike about either one of those things, or where you find the overlap, because I see it. I don't know if you do.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you asked this because I think in my 20s and 30s, I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. And at one point, I just mentioned I went and got my master's in social work. I started it, I didn't finish it. And partially through that process, I was starting an online business because I felt that I needed to prove that I could be an entrepreneur and I could help the world and be good at that too. And I did very well in school, but it was just too much. And I ended up leaving social work and feeling like I can do that in another way. Um, so when I started my jewelry, interior design to me was never creative. I actually really never loved it. It usually ends up being about like what your client wants and not what your creative eye wants. So I can remember saying to myself, I want to create something where people come to me to buy it because they like what I'm doing, not necessarily telling me to make something that you could find anywhere else.
Right.
So when I started the jewelry in the beginning of it, I was very fortunate because I was recognized very early in the business and with awards, and then I did a bunch of shows, and I had some great retailers, and it was for me, it was very, it confirmed for me that I can do physical creativity, and I don't make the jewelry, I just design it, but
Right.
I could prove that I create my artistic side was able to come out. It was important for me to do that. Now that I've done that, um, and I started this podcast, I said to someone the other day, I said, I don't think I realized the podcast is still super creative. It's just a different creativity. And I feel now that I've been able to prove myself with my art, that I can enjoy this process a little bit more. And I get really excited, but I love doing the podcast. I love it. So
It's really interesting, by the way. The listeners will get a chance to see this in the show notes when you click links to go check out It's Not a Crisis. I've never seen a more I'm laughing about your point that you wanted to make it positive. You have to see how the word not is written. It is written in this red, upward from the bottom left to the upper right, moving onward and upward, and in the most positive font you've ever seen the word not in your entire
right.
life. And it's actually, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm sure that was intentional because you have a creative component to this.
It was absolutely intentional. I worked very hard on that logo.
and it sticks out. And I think that I've had a creative side in my life, and obviously I have a core towards doing business. And part of the joy of producing podcasts for me is like twofold. One, you're providing the world with great content to see, or, it's like artwork in a weird way.
Mhm.
And on top of that, it has the better benefit of having a great conversation in an interview format program. Do you feel that?
I do. So, and I didn't finish what you had asked me, so I
Yeah.
apologize. But you had also said that what I don't like about.
Yeah.
So my biggest issue with jewelry is that I don't like, I don't like selling. I don't like trunk shows. I don't want to be there and say, "Hey, look at my beautiful jewelry. Do you want to buy it?" It makes me very uncomfortable. Um, and so uh it, with the podcast, I like being behind my microphone. And it's not that I'm unfriendly, and I'm very friendly and open to people that I just meet, or but I think it's something about selling yourself that is uncomfortable to me. um and I'm sorry, your second question, I forgot what you
I,
asked.
I think it was more like, do you see it really as that creative process? Do you think of
Oh,
it? Yeah.
the podcast.
Yes. As
Absolutely.
art, for
Oh,
that matter.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I, as we all know, and I've had my jewelry business for 7 years. Um, I'm at one point had a pretty decent sized staff and then downsized, but for the most part, I'm doing everything. And one of the biggest things that I had built is the social media. And the funny thing is, I just always found my in my jewelry social media, I always felt like there wasn't the engagement that I wanted. And to this day, I don't believe that I have that. With the podcast, the engagement is amazing. And I think it's because while the jewelry is beautiful and it's, my work, I think the podcast is me. So it allows me to be even more creative because I genuinely just feel like myself, and
Yeah.
I'm putting myself out there as me. And I'm sort of one of these people of like, you either like me or you don't, and then you don't have to listen, or you do.
See, I'm putting myself out there behind the microphone. Yeah.
Yeah, putting myself out there. Well, I do stories. I do a lot of work on the social media. So I that's something new that I never ever did for my jewelry business. But I get on and talk to the camera, and I get on with like no makeup on. Sometimes I do. Like I don't know if that's a product of getting more comfortable in your own skin in your 40s, but I never ever. I think I felt more judged by my jewelry community. It's a totally different demographic.
Interestingly, and it also could be an aside effect of COVID, in the sense that we're all inside, and most women aren't wearing any lip products anymore because they're wearing masks when they go
Yes.
outside.
Yes. Or clothes. I mean, we're just wearing workout clothes. Never thought I'd be that woman who stays in her workout clothes all day, but it's happening.
Do you think did you ever imagine that you would create a platform that would probably create more content as episode comes out, because of the fact that you're starting to increase your circles of connectivity of who is interested in hearing this program?
Um, I didn't think about that, but I am slowly realizing that it's interesting how that's happening. I'm getting people from different places. I mean, I'm hopefully going to get a bunch of Vanessa Williams fans at some point, or any Potts fans. But yeah, no, I really didn't think about that going into it, but I'm starting to see that now.
I love asking this question, Doryn, and I'm still curious to see where this goes. Look, you've had a thriving jewelry business. You still do. You have a new podcast that's enlightening you and engaging others. I love to put that on the par of you are thriving each and every day. But yet we all have days when we're not quite kicking on all cylinders. Doryn, when you have trouble thriving, who or what practice do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Oh, um, we definitely all, especially creatives, we even with the podcast, we get blocks, or we just get days where we're like, I don't want to do this today. um, I honestly, I give myself a break. I take a day and I just, do something other than work as much as I can. If I have to, I have to. And it sounds kind of crazy. I'll go out to lunch by myself, and for some reason
Okay.
that's really helpful for me to kind of clear my head or take a drive. Um, And I try not to beat myself up about it. And, it happens to all of us. So, and especially when you have your own business, it's just a lot, a lot. So,
Before we get to some of the admin part of the show, or more notably the get to hear more about you, I want to ask this simple question: why they listen? Why do they listen to It's Not a Crisis? What do you think is the thing that's drawing people in, if for the listeners that are out there?
I think I am very transparent. I'm very honest about everything that I talk about. I'm one of those people. If you met me in person, I would be no different than I am on my podcast, and I'm sort of an open book for the most part. And I can talk to anyone or anything about any. I like it's a people used to joke that I could make concrete talk back to me, but I think that people just hear that I'm genuine, and I think that I inject my own experiences and put myself out there in a vulnerable way into the podcast. Because one of the reasons I started it was that I need to learn these things too. So I'm learning selfishly, I'm learning through the podcast myself. And I think people just find that I'm relatable and feel like I'm not trying to claim I'm an expert in anything, and I'm learning too. So, I think that's what it is.
It is. It's like the best seat in the house, isn't it? Right? When you
Yeah.
have a chance to talk to somebody in that way. I
hmm
totally get it. Let's do this. The admin part of the show. Doryn, if you could share with the listeners all the places people can find you, your program. You can target people to the jewelry stuff as well. We will put it all in the show notes. However, it always gets more engagement when they hear it from you.
Okay. So with the jewelry, by the way, until December 15th, my entire site is 15% off. So
Ooh, okay.
that is DorynWallachJewelry.com. You can also find that on Instagram and Facebook. And the podcast, my website is itsnotacrisis.com. Just launched it today, relaunched it, because I did it for the first time myself in Wix, and it wasn't very good. So now it's professional.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
Listeners, you'll check it out.
I have a Facebook group, which is a private group. I also have, I'm very active on Instagram, which is It's Not a Crisis Podcast. And you can also find it on Facebook. And I'm also working on a Patreon account where I've got a lot of women that they really want to like sit and chat. They want to have conversations. So I've created a couple tiers, and in the highest tier, I'm going to put together a small group of women, possibly every other week, with a topic, and we're gonna just talk, about whatever that is.
I like it.
Yeah.
Permission, Doryn, to go down Fun Street with you.
Okay.
Listeners need to know that she's literally sweating right now because she's very nervous about where these.
Don't like being put on the spot. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Even though you don't know the answer, can you share with the listeners maybe what your all-time favorite movie is, or one of many that you're selecting from?
I mean, so I just like so many types of movies. I from rom-coms to mystery, suspense. One movie that always comes back to me, and it's so funny because it was a great movie. It wasn't amazing, but it was a great movie. Is The Sixth Sense.
Oh, great movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I found that any movie that makes you kind of go back and watch it again to figure out, like, when you're done with it, being like, I need to watch this again and again and again. And every time you watch it, you see something new. That movie always stuck out to me as one of my favorites. And my mother was she's very obsessed with the paranormal and the afterlife and blah, blah, blah. So I think I liked it for that reason too.
I think the anniversary dinner where he shows up and they're there and you are thinking that he's still in the real world and you realize that afterwards that he's not. That's where my brain first goes. I'm like, oh my God.
Yes.
Who knew? Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for those that are listening.
But when you go back and you look at it, it's a better experience the second time. So to me, like, that's a great movie. If you're going back in, and I just watched a show on HBO that was kind of a similar situation, The Undoing.
Oh, I just finished it as well.
Yeah. So my husband started watching it, and I went back to episode 1 while I was waiting for him to watch it, because I wanted to see if I noticed anything in episode 1. And I did see a few things, but yeah, it was good. It was good. That was a very
I'll just leave it at this. The only thing I noticed in that movie is that Fifth Avenue apartments by multimillionaires are the greatest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And they have to stop showing those to those that can never afford to live
and
with those
really,
things.
really dark and depressing.
Yes, like with strange wall hangings. But
Yes.
aside from that,
Yeah, exactly.
very nice. Okay, we're going to do the speed round of Fun Street. This one, you'll be on your toes. What I'm looking for, Doryn, first thing that comes to mind, things that make you feel good, that lift you up, that basically make you thrive. Ready for this? Think of it
yeah.
like Family Feud, but I haven't
Okay.
surveyed 100 people. Okay.
Okay.
A song that lifts you up or you love to listen to.
I think Fill Me Up Buttercup.
It's awesome. I love that song.
That song just makes you happy.
It does. A favorite food that's not a dessert.
Pizza.
A favorite dessert.
Chocolate souffle.
An activity you wish you did more of.
I have an electric scooter that I just got and I love it. And it's sort of my new hobby. So I kind of wish I could do more of that, but it's getting cold.
I like that though. An activity you wish you did less of.
Oh God. Working out, which I don't consider an activity. I mean, I have to do it, I feel.
If you can snap your fingers and go anywhere in the world, Doryn, where are you?
I'd like to go to Asia, Japan. I was actually going to, my kids go to sleepaway camp, and this summer I had planned on going there by myself I wasn't sure where. And then I love to travel.
Awesome. Doryn Wallach, truly a pleasure to have you on here. It's not a crisis. It sounds like an amazing program and a great platform and something that's going to be a phenomenal tool for women or anyone, any listener to connect on. And I think it's great that you're bringing this content to the world. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. This was fun. And
Isn't
it's to be on the other side.
Oh, it's like a requirement for any good host is to be on the other side every once in a while. Absolutely. Well, thank you again. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep moving onward and upward and be brief, right?
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Head on over to Spotify, Good Pods, or wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe and listen to all of our incredible episodes. Follow Lou at Thrive Loud everywhere on social media, and head on over to thriveloud.com to connect directly to Lou and learn how you and your business can thrive loud too. Thanks for listening.